What's up, everybody? I just want to take a second and talk about meta lessons, what that means to me, and how you might be able to apply it to your life and hopefully benefits you. So, um, I'm a super learning based person. I fucking love just diving into new information, new environments, learning through osmosis, taking on something new from a skill set or activity standpoint or perspective, and just seeing what that can teach me. And I think a lot of times we run into decision fatigue, or at least I do, around what to pursue or what to get good at, because there's so many options and so many things that are enjoyable to do, but we only have a limited amount of time. So I think for me, one of the things I developed early on in my life was this perspective where no matter what I do, I want to take away the most core or most fundamental principles or lessons out of whatever it is that I'm doing. That way I can apply it to everything else. That way I don't have to get good at 100 things that I'm really passionate about. If I can find the one underlying thread or the 3 or 4 or 5 principles that kind of connect, the 100 things that I'm interested in, and I get good at those, then by default, everything else will just kind of unfold either through key relationships or time on task or as a secondary principle. And this kind of goes back to, something that connects with the Pareto principle, which is, 80% of your results stem from 20% of your input. It's actually a law in nature first, which is why it's a law in business or in economics. But essentially, if there's like a pride of lions and there's 10 of them, 2 of them are killing 80% of what the pride is eating as a whole, right? And 80%, the leftover 80% of the lions, the other 8 are killing 20% of the food that everyone's eating. And this goes to, play into statistics and outliers and how those things affect each other. And also how outliers compound and outlier experiences compound. So if you yourself are an outlier with one of your personality traits, that puts you in a position statistically to be exposed to more experiences that propagate that for you. And the more you're an outlier in one trait, that tends to propagate potential outlier behaviors or polarities and other traits. So that's super interesting. And how that plays out over time is just super fascinating. There's a lot of laws around business and around finances and just around personal development that come from those things or are oriented around those principles. The reason I bring that up is because if you take that Pareto principle, that 20% rule, there's 20% of whatever you're doing. If you're playing a sport, if you're learning a craft, if you're learning, to play music, or if you're building a business or you're on a team, there's 20% of what you're doing that's more important than everything else. And it's yielding you 80% of the results that you've been getting. And you may not just be conscientious of what that is, what that most important thing is that's affecting everything else. So if you can kind of step back and assess and figure out what that 20% is, you can divert almost all of your time, focus, and attention into that, and it will offset any deficits that you have in skill or time or experience or resources. If you don't have the money to do your startup, if you go do your 20% activity, everything else will figure itself out over time, as long as you're committed to getting through like the failure curves, and you're tough enough to survive your first couple of biffs, you'll figure it out. So to me, how that all roots back to meta lessons is when you're learning something new or you're learning anything, you can look for that rooted 20%. You can zoom out and almost take like, the way I try to conceptualize it is if I'm going to a class around like jujitsu or something like that, something physical, or watching someone lift, or, learning new lifts, learning something new in the gym from a trainer. You go and you can learn the literal principles that they're teaching you or skills that they're teaching you. Hey, when you heel hook, this is where you tuck the toes. This is how you torque your arm, or, this is how your legs should be locked. But those are the tactical things. There is also a philosophical half of the conversation, principles that govern what's happening there that apply to other things. If you can hyper focus on learning those principles, all of a sudden what you're learning in your jujitsu class or what you're learning from your lifting coach now can be converted to anything. And you can think of the tactics as the skin or as the like paint job that the thing is showing up in, right? And if you can remove the paint job, you realize like the core, the framework of the lessons or what you need to know can just be dressed up in a new skin, and you can peel these lessons and just, that's how learning compounds basically. And the more you focus on meta lessons, the more you focus on the philosophy of something, the more generally your knowledge can be applied. Now, obviously there's, once you hit a level of mastery or you're approaching mastery with a given tactic or skill set or area of interest, you're going to need tactical versus philosophical knowledge, right? Like you're going to have to know something exactly about, how to move your body when you're doing a squat, or exactly how to angle your feet to shoot your, PR up another 5 or 10 pounds. But ultimately, the more important key takeaways are the philosophical ones, because they will serve you in more than just the area of squatting. How you angle your feet for a squat objectively may not serve you other places. But if you can look for the 20% of what's making that principle true tactically, then you can take it into a philosophical and flip it from a tactical to a philosophical lesson. And now it's going to serve you in 10 other things that you do, right? And, ironically, the Pareto principle, learning that in business and applying that to other areas of my life is a version of how that's played out in reality for me, so learning that that's a business principle made me go, holy crap, this is really interesting. I'm going to go study this. And then you're like, shit, this is true in every freaking thing that has ever existed, because it's a nature principle and everything's unfolding from nature and biology. So it's present in, governments and political systems and financial systems, in team-oriented activities. It's just pretty wild. So there's other things that are similar to that principle that govern what's going on. Get good at those and you'll understand multiple things at the same time, multiple areas of interest at the same time. And you'll be more predisposed to achieve mastery faster, because you've taken the 20% and made that your focus and made that your determination. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that's, something that you guys can use productively. I feel like that's something that swims around in my mind a lot. It's definitely served me in my life. Just looking for the meta lesson, the key takeaway that blankets several things. If this helps you, share it with somebody, pay it forward, whatever, and have a great day.